What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Dolphins Daily, your daily dose of Dolphins content. And a thank you to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring this video. Once again, big shout out to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring this video. Let's talk about the Dolphins. So I alluded to talking about this coaching candidate yesterday, and I just didn't get into it fully because I thought it was too big of a topic to be a smaller one inside of a bigger one. So we're doing a standalone. One of the candidates that the Dolphins are looking at to be their head coach is Chris Shula. Chris Shula, if that sounds familiar to you, then that's good. The last name is iconic in South Florida. He's the grandson of Don Shula, who is the best coach ever, if not the second best coach, depending on if you're a Patriots fan or a Belichick guy. But arguably, like, the best coach of all time, and definitely the Dolphins' best coach of all time. He is the defensive coordinator for the Rams and has been for the last 2 years. Again, this seems more like the Dolphins are veering away from Anthony Weaver, which is totally cool if that's what we're doing, but it makes sense. This would be an interesting hire for a lot of reasons. One, it's kind of one of those cinematic things like a Shula in Miami that just seems like the media will just eat it up, right? It's an easy story to tell. He's young, we can grow with the team. It's a thing. Like it's a whole thing. The question is, as a fit, does it work? You guys know I mentioned yesterday, I'm a big fan of coordinators that are good at their job being the ones that are getting coaching nods. So if you're an offensive coordinator and you have the 21st best offense, I don't I don't want to hear about you being my head coach. Like, you haven't mastered your side of the ball yet. The Rams defense has been a mixture of a lot of things. I like the Rams defensive personnel. They, first of all, drafted a bunch of young guys and developed them quickly. So if you asked me this question last year, I would say half their defense was rookies or first year or second year guys. And I thought they played maybe a little bit above their skis. This year, the defense for the first half of the year was awesome. When I thought the Rams were the best team in the league, and they were my Super Bowl pick, no, October-ish, maybe early November. And then the defense kind of, I think that Carolina loss is where I was like, I lost to Carolina. And it wasn't like a fluky loss. It was like they just let Bryce Young just keep making plays. I was like, all right, I don't know about that. Then I saw like the Seattle game. I was like, I don't know about that. Then the Atlanta game happened. I was like, I don't know about that. And then, of course, last week against Carolina again, kind of a similar thing where Carolina was moving the ball very well in that game. I'm not saying Chris Shula is not a good defensive coordinator. What I am saying is that I don't think he's the best defensive coordinator in this hiring cycle. So if our goal is to hire a defensive-minded head coach to run a team, I don't think he's the best coach to do that. Would it be a great story? Of course. A Shula back in Miami, who doesn't, that writes itself, right? But if the question is a Jeremy Mentor or a Don Shula or Chris Shula, I'm sorry, then I think Jeremy Mentor is a better hire if we're going to go that direction. But, the story writes itself. I'm not sure how much John Eric wants to like delve into the history of Miami or if he's trying to pave his own path, because that's the other part of this consideration. Do you want to like live on some version of nostalgia, some kind of past lore of the team, and then try to bring that into the future? Or do you want to just pave a brand new path? That was the past. This is the future. We don't want those two to overlap. It's an interesting question because if you bring him in, there's some people will ask the question like, is he worthy of the job? Or are we doing this for clicks? Because there seem to be, I would say, at least 5 or 6 candidates that are better. If we brought in Mike McCarthy, that would be better. We could objectively sell that. Super Bowl winning coach, many winning seasons, playoff runs, offensive side of the ball. Like, you can sell that easily, right? To me, I put Chris Shula kind of in the Jeff Hafley conversation where I don't think either one really should be the leading candidate to be the coach. I think they're both good at their jobs enough that they would not really be fired anytime soon. But I don't think any of them are like, wow, that side of the ball is crazy. Like, why is no one looking at the DC for Houston? I actually forgot his name before this show, so maybe that's why. But Houston is the best defense in the league. They're my favorite defense to watch. They swarm everywhere. They don't even do anything overly complicated. It's 4 guys on the line, and we're just going to punish you. They drafted the right people. They developed the right people. Now, if you think that DeMeco Ryans is really the defensive coordinator, and so their DC is more of a figurehead, totally get that. That's kind of the Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy thing. I get that. But if you're saying, I want a defensive-minded coach who's great at his job, Vance Joseph will come to mind before that because the Broncos defense is arguably the second best defense in the league, and he's been a head coach before. Okay. But the Texans, DC, their defense is ferocious. They don't stop hitting people. It's fantastic to watch. I haven't heard his name in the cycle like at all. And I don't know if that's because he's newer at the job. I don't know if they just think that all your personnel is great, so anybody can coach that. I'm not sure why, but I would lean more that way if that was my intention. Obviously, we're not going to hire Brian Flores, who I think is outside of him the best defensive guy floating out there. But it'll be a cool story if we got Chris Shula here. I'm sure he knows the area. He'll fit in. He knows all the vibes. But is he the best person for the job? I don't believe he is. But don't be shocked if, as we get closer to the hiring date, his name might start emerging. The Rams are still in the playoffs right now. So, I guess things will only heat up for real, if they get knocked out, and then he can come here in person and do all that stuff. But I just seen a name floating around. I don't know. I'm a little bit more on the fence than I think a lot of people are. One of the reasons I'm more on the fence is because I think there are better coaches out there. I think Robert Saleh is a very easy example, which is why he's the topic of our second block. Robert Saleh was a coach with the Jets before. The Jets are dysfunctional, terrible organization. Can't get it right at quarterback, can't get it right at coach. Ownership is terrible. Personnel, not bad, but then they somehow mess up good personnel. The Jets are terrible. We get that, right? But I think Robert Saleh is the example of, are you really good at your side of the ball? And then can you lead a team? I think Robert Saleh is a leader of men. I think he was in a really bad place with the Jets. I think the Aaron Rodgers thing was really bad for him. It just was a lot to deal with. I think he is a defensive-minded dude who gets the most out of his players. He's got the good amount of energy. He's the right age. He's the right temperament. I think Robert Saleh is actually a really good coach this cycle of hiring, and I think he will get a job somewhere. I think if he ends up being the Dolphins coach, that's actually a really good pickup because he's a culture type dude. I think he's the right amount of stern. He's the right amount of players coach. What he's doing with San Francisco's defense this year is crazy. They've lost so many all pros, pro bowlers, high level guys, and they keep winning games. They could have been the 1 seed this year. They beat Seattle in that last week, which is absurd. To even be, and they would have had a home field for the entire playoffs because the Super Bowl is in San Francisco this year. That's unreasonable. It doesn't make any sense. I'm watching these guys on the field. I don't even know who made that tackle, who's getting pressure, who's making. What he's done with his defense has been nothing short of masterful. Imagine if he had his whole allotment of his players. I think that's the example that I'm looking for personally. If we're going to hire a defensive-minded coach who's shown me, hey, man, you give me lemons, I can make you some lemonade. Not, I need lemons, I need a couple handfuls of sugar, 2 pitchers. I'm like, yeah, anybody can make lemonade with that. But if you say, yo, give me some lemons, I'll figure it out. And then he's like, yo, this tastes pretty good. That's what Robert Saleh has shown me he can do. The Jets defenses were always good when he was there as well. So it's not like he's just good with San Francisco. He's shown I'm good with defenses wherever I am. Again, the situation went really bad with quarterback. Injuries were a factor in that whole situation. But as a leader, as a dude who I think will be better his second time around, and he was also in a New York media firestorm. It's a different thing up there. People are just attacking you, just like you have one bad game and the whole media wants you fired. It's a whole different thing. I believe that Robert Saleh honestly should be near the top of our list. If the goal is to go defensive, I think Robert Saleh is a really tough person to knock off the top perch. Because what else would you want in your defensive coordinating coach? Right? Like what else would you want? He's done the job already in multiple locations. He's been a coach before. He's been humbled. I don't think his asking price would be exorbitant. I think exorbitant. I think it'll be like in a decent range. You want to pay him $20 million like reportedly John Harbaugh's asking for. So it won't be anything like that. I think he's a really good coach. I think a lot of coaches in this cycle are going to try to hire, a lot of teams are going to try to hire offensive-minded coaches, right? Atlanta needs to figure out their quarterback situation. Tennessee has Cam Ward. They have a quarterback thing. Jackson Dart is a young quarterback. I think most of the teams, the Raiders, we'll see. They're going to draft Mendoza. I imagine they want an offensive-minded coach to be there. Makes sense. So if that's the case, then there won't be as many openings for defensive-minded coaches. I think Baltimore will go defensive. I think Miami could. I think Cleveland, I don't know what they're going to do. They're Cleveland. They do whatever they want. it can go either way. They're looking at Mike McDaniel, and they're also looking at, you know, past defensive-minded coaches. Like, they can do whatever they want. But I like Robert Saleh. Of the two, you ask me, Chris Shula, Robert Saleh. To me, it's almost a no-brainer to me to go after Robert Saleh. He's a more proven commodity. It doesn't mean Chris Shula in the long run may not be better. Can't speak on the future. I'm saying for the next 2 to 3 years, which fans care about, fans aren't looking 11 years out. I don't want to hear about, yeah, my first decade of coaching wasn't good. No one's here for that. Hey, next year we know the cap's going to be rough. Okay? Got to figure out the Tua stuff. But 2 years from now, are we competing with the Patriots or not? Because they have a 22-year-old quarterback, and they have a chance to go to the Super Bowl this year. What are we doing about that? And also, that giant centaur running around up in Buffalo, got to deal with that guy too. What's our plan for that? I don't want to hear about 11 years from now when those guys are retired, or Josh, I guess. What are we doing the next couple of years to compete on that level, to win the division, to actually start getting to the conference championships and Super Bowls? What's your short-term plan? And I think short-term, Robert Saleh is a better option. So that's why I personally would go. But again, whoever we pick up, I'm going to ride with. I'm riding with the coach. But this is my opinion, and this is my show. And now a word from our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Football playoffs are here, and Underdog is the best place to get in on all the action. Playing on Underdog is easy. Just pick if your favorite player will go higher or lower on various stats, including rushing yards, receiving yards, touchdowns, etc. If you pick them right, you could win up to 5,000 times your cash. Now, I'll be giving my picks on tomorrow's show, so we got to give a little teaser there. But what are you waiting for? Download the app today and use promo code FOOTBALLFAN to score $75 in bonus entries once you make your first $5 play. That's promo code FOOTBALLFAN. Underdog, make picks, win some money. So we are transitioning to draft talk because why not? We're already like at that part of our season. The year's almost over. We haven't hired our coach yet, so we don't know what direction he wants to go in. But we can start projecting out what is the team going to be rebuilding with, right? Part of what makes this job attractive to any incoming person is what kind of assets do we have? And as a current roster, a little meager. But as a potential roster, not bad. Miami has 5 picks in the top 100 right now because the Jalen Phillips pick has been confirmed, or I guess it's been solidified. It's like the 87th pick because of where Philadelphia fell. So that pick has been locked in. So we have 3 third-round picks, 1 first round, 1 second round. 5 picks in the top 100. Those 5 picks theoretically could all be people that start for the team. So if you're going to take your first 5 picks and try to get the maximum value for it, then you can do whatever you want. You can say, hey, first, second round, O-line, third round, D-line, secondary. Or you can flip those numbers around. Hey, we're going secondary is our biggest weakness. Secondary heavy first. That's where Mel Kiper has us projecting to get a cornerback in the first pick. We'll see. This is going to be a very fluid situation. I don't take too much stock in all that. Those guys just want to stay relevant this whole time. Mel Kiper has been literally talking about the draft all season, and it's just been saying a bunch of nonsensical things. But that's fine. They need to talk. That's their job. We're doing this because these are our picks. We need to figure out what we're going to do with the picks, right? I think the best approach, and I've said it many times, the trenches to me were not fortified last year. We'll do a full segment on Kendall Grant later in the week. But we did the right thing, I think, in terms of how we drafted. We went D-line, O-line, back-to-back. What's your biggest weakness? Interior defensive line. Go get the guy. Okay? Next pick, guard. Go get a guard. We did that. It did not work this year. Doesn't mean these picks won't work in the future. We may have just picked the wrong guys, which is that's a regular thing. That happens. Sometimes you make a pick. You say, hey, that's my guy. And then the guy behind him is like, the Bears picked Colston Loveland. And then right after the words, Tyler Warren got picked. Both are tight ends. Both were great. Both could have gone in the top 10. But Tyler Warren looks like he's one of those ones. Loveland looks good. Warren looks like, whoa, we may have got a diamond right here. So sometimes you just make the wrong pick, even though you picked the right position. I'm hoping, because we have a new GM and a new group of people making picks, that we do better in the draft. I think Miami has largely not been great at drafting, which is really disappointing because we've had really good picks. We have a lot of draft equity, and then it hasn't translated into actually the players they should have been. Imagine if Cam Smith had actually been a second round cornerback and panned out, and then you add him with a guy like Cater, and then we get a guy like Rasul, and then we start building a team. All of a sudden, he's like, yo, we got a really good secondary. Minka Fitzpatrick, we can have one of the best secondaries. But then when you miss on that pick and then you spend a few years trying to develop it, a second round pick should be a mainstay. Like, by comparison, Petrie, who's the safety for Houston, was a second round pick. He wasn't elite as like a free safety, so they moved him down to box, and now I think he's the best slot corner safety hybrid player in the league. He's my favorite guy on their defense to watch hit. And they have a defense of boys, grown men out there even hitting people. He flies around. He's 6 foot, 205 pounds, but he's everywhere. Second round pick. We picked Cam Smith in the second round. He's no longer on the team. So it's not always draft position. It's what are we evaluating talent wise? Because it seems like some teams really hit on the draft a lot, and some teams don't. And I think Miami largely has been don't. Like Devon Achane is a hit, third round pick, Pro Bowl, borderline all pro running back. That's fantastic. Jalen Wright is also a third round pick, and he's largely not been on the field this year. So that's part of how the draft works. It's an imperfect science. We know that. We've seen all the first round grades of this person's going to change the world. Like Marvin Harrison Jr. is supposed to be the best receiver in the league already, and he is far from it. He's not even a top 20 receiver. Is that because they don't have a good quarterback? Possibly, right? Some receivers can't outplay bad quarterback play. I saw DeAndre Hopkins and Andre Johnson both have quarterbacks for a lot of their career and still be really, really good. Those guys are also both future Hall of Famers. Sometimes you need to be in a perfect situation, even if you're a good player. I've seen a lot of hype that hasn't panned out. I don't know what Miami's approach is going to be. I think our biggest weakness is still the trenches. But we definitely need help in the secondary. Unfortunately, this draft for secondary is not particularly good. I think Caleb Downs is overrated. I'll say that right now. Now, he might fall to Miami, and we might end up picking him up. I was told last year, if he went pro, he would have been a top 5 pick. All the people said, oh, this guy's ready to play right now. You may know his brother Josh Downs plays for the Colts. They were like, he's got the pedigree. He's big. He could be a safety, corner, best. I watched him play this year. I was unimpressed most of the time. That may be the Ohio State stink. Maybe he started reading, his press clippings. To me, he was largely unimpressive this year. Doesn't mean he's physically there. I think the skill to be amazing is all there. But I was told this is a slam dunk. He might be a top 3 pick in the secondary. And now it's like, yeah, he's kind of got in the mid to late first round grade. I'm like, really? What happened? Wasn't Ohio State number 1 most of this year? He's supposed to be all world. It's the same thing I said for those of you who followed me from the beginning. Thank y'all for still being here. I said when this channel first started, there's a lot of hype about this upcoming quarterback class. And I said, I don't believe the hype. I don't think these guys are going to be that good. And now, what do you know? Hopefully Dante Moore comes out. If not, this could be the worst quarterback class in 20 years. I'm like, yeah. But that's what people do in the media. They want to hype things up and they just have to play themselves out. So I'm really curious what the approach is going to be. I think that will be more clear in the coming weeks. And there's also guys who haven't declared for the draft yet. So keep that in mind. There are people who we assume will go pro, who may talk to their people and say, you know what, I don't like where I'm being slotted. Cam Ward did this 2 years ago. He was going to go pro from Washington State, and they were saying you're going to be like a 3rd, 4th round pick. He's like, I think I'm better than that. And then he went to Miami and became number 1 pick. Sometimes it works out like that. But I think once we know all the people, when people declare, which I think happens in the next week or so, I think the 13th or something like that. I got to look at that date up. They have to declare soon. Once they all declare and we know where they're going to be slotted, then we'll start getting to the permutations of what's going to happen. I'm also not opposed to us bundling picks to move up to go get the person you want. So if there's an offensive lineman you want in the first round and you think they might go pick 7 or 8, and we use a 1st and a 3rd to jump a few spots to get the guy that is our guy, I'm not opposed to that. We'll get into more of those scenarios down the line because there's a couple out there. One may or may not play in Miami that if there's a chance that we can go get him, we have the capital. Use it to go get him. Lock it down. But we'll be talking about this for the next 5 or 6 months. So I'm really looking forward to locking in on it. And I'm sure you guys are looking forward to it as well. But as always, y'all, thank you for tuning into Dolphins Daily. We appreciate the love and support. Thank y'all for the likes and the subscribes. We'll see you next time on Dolphins Daily. Peace.